Well, good afternoon. Welcome to PIP Connect. My name is Andy Hudson, and thank you for attending today's webinar, which is called Creating Memorable Meetings and Events. And before we introduce our panelists, we'd like to hear from all of you, our attendees, as you're starting to join. So we're going to launch a quick poll we'd like you to participate in, just to get a feel for the different job roles represented by today's attendees. So let's go ahead and launch that poll. And as people are joining, you can tell us what best describes your job role. Okay, are you in human resources or people operations, where you're dealing with workplace culture? Are you a business development person responsible for identifying new opportunities or nurturing relationships or partnerships? Marketing and communications is another category. Maybe you're part of an executive team, helping your company make big decisions and being a company leader. Or maybe you take part in client relations or customer service. So let us know. And we're going to keep this open for about a minute total. So about 15 more seconds as more people are joining. And then we'll look at the results. Again, welcome to today's webinar. And if you're just joining us, please go ahead and answer the questions on the poll about what best describes your job role. Okay, that's been open for a minute. Let's look at the results here. And it looks like the majority of people here are in marketing and communications, about 40%, and then administrative level positions at 20%, client customer service at 12%. So thank you so much for sharing that information with us. That helps us determine some talking points for today's webinar. So with that, I'd like to get started with a quick overview. I'm just going to share the screen here. Oops. Stand by, please. And here we go. So here's an overview of today's session. I'm welcoming you right now, and we're going to meet two of our wonderful panelists today, Candace Crossfield, how to execute impactful in-person and virtual events, and Kate Rink for delivering the best gifts better. And as mentioned, my name is Andy Hudson. I'm very excited to be your moderator today. And as I mentioned, we have two amazing panelists, and that we'll have some additional polls along the way where we can learn a little bit about you, and also a Q&A session at the end. With that, if I could have our panelists turn on their cameras and their audio, and let's welcome Candace Crossfield and Kate Rink. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to you both. I hope you're doing well. And Kate, I'm going to start with you. Just a little self-introduction, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Absolutely. My name is Kate. I live in the Texas area. I've been in the incentive industry for almost 20 years, but with incentive concepts for almost 3. And I'm on the events side of the division, so we work solely with events.
Wonderful. And Kate, you're going to have a nice presentation near the end of our session today. And Candace, thanks so much for joining us as well. And I'm going to stop the screen share, which I already did. I'm going to ask Kate to step aside so we can get to know you a little bit better. You're a meeting planner with over 20 years of experience. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, maybe your interests or hobbies in your current role?
Sure, and thank you for having me today. I have been doing, like Andy said, my entire adult life. I've been doing events, which just really means I've been in a lot of smelly hotel loading docks. And actually in one today, and I've thoroughly inspected their loading dock, and it's just like all the others. And I've done everything from association meetings, production, venue and hotel sales. And just recently, I've started really dive into corporate meeting planning as an independent planner. I am the mom of a way too old and too grown up 15-year-old young man. I do love to travel and eat all the delicious food in all the different places that we go. And I love meeting new people. And my favorite part is watching them all connect at the events that we plan. I'm currently an internal planner for a client turned employer named Focus Brands, and they are a wonderful company, and I'm having so much fun doing their meetings.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us. And The way that today's session is going to go for you is we're just going to have a little give and take here, interview type format, and then we'll get into a presentation later with Kate, if that's okay. And so the first question is, with the dramatic shift in society due to COVID-19, and I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing this, how are meetings and events different today than they were pre-pandemic? And why, I guess more generally, why are events important?
Sure. I should shorten the answer and say, how are they not different? Because they are exponentially different than they were before. They require a lot more planning. You have to find trusted COVID testing vendors, make sure tables and chairs are far enough apart in all the sessions. Some of the hotels want to put you far apart in the general session and then put you on top of each other in the breakouts. Everyone's trying to, make the most of the space. And you're traveling with hand sanitizers, masks, Clorox wipes. So all the things to make everyone feel safe. And that's probably the most important thing that we do as meeting planners since COVID. Make sure everyone feels safe so that we can keep doing our job. And meetings are so important because it helps people connect. I'm in one of our first meetings that they're having at Focus Brands since the pandemic. And a lot of these people have never met each other. They've all been on Zoom calls, and it's such a different experience to be on a Zoom call with someone, to meet them in person, to shake their hand, to really get a feel for who they are and how we can all work together. This meeting that I'm at right now is really showing me that they are so important. This person-to-person connection that we create when we do events.
For sure. And that's going to lead us to our next poll question while more people have joined. And it's about the size of your events. So for those of you that have, and I think I still had the poll 1 up there for sharing that answer. Let me get to poll 2 here. And we're going to launch the second poll, which is what size are the events that you typically execute? So let's go ahead and answer that for everybody that's attending. And I'm just going to ask you, Candace, what's the size of the event that you are currently involved in right now, as far as number of attendees?
It's right at under 100. It's probably like 90 on the biggest day. And I feel like that's probably where most people are right now is, those smaller, more internal meetings before we blow it out of the water with the big trade shows.
Right. And what's the largest event that you've ever executed as far as attendees?
I wish I knew how many people were at the one that I did in Amsterdam before the world shut down. I handled a small portion of it as a contractor, so I don't know how many people, but the largest one I've done personally is 2,000 people in Orlando.
And I'm sure you knew every one of them by name, right?
I did. I'll see them again in April, and I'll have to regurgitate all of that.
Okay, wonderful. All right, we're going to end the poll, and here, let's share the results here. It looks like the majority of people are on the medium to small side with a evenly split at 45%. That makes good sense. We do have a few attendees who've executed some larger events, and even one attendee who's executed events for 1,000 plus. So as far as size goes, as events, are there certain things you need to think about based on the different sizes of events, Candace? Or?
Well, sure. And especially if you asked me that question 2 years ago versus today, it would be it's a very different answer. I would think it's a much harder thing to talk people into going to an event for 2,000 people than it is to talk someone into going to an event with 100 people. Things like that. God, I can't think of any. Probably 1,000 people, you're thinking about a trade show. 1,000 plus people. So 100 people, you're not really doing that. So there's just different elements that come with larger events.
Okay, for sure. And the next question is you passed your certified meeting professional planner exam in 2015, and you've served as a president of the Georgia chapter of the MPI, which probably a lot of people are familiar with. But how does being a certified meeting professional help when it comes to interacting with clients or potential clients?
Sure. I need to put a plug in there for MPI though. If anybody in this on this call is not a part of their local chapter of something, whatever is close to your industry that you're in, do that, because I think that's the only way you can be successful in this industry is to make connections and learn who's the best at what they do so that you can partner with those people. And I think that's probably what gets this, the CMP is also important because immediately when they see it in your signature, they know they're dealing with someone who knows their stuff. It gets you past that meeting 101 conversation that clients or hotels or partners want to have with you when you get the comma behind your name. But the most important thing that you can have as a meeting planner is experience. I don't know if everyone that you work with knows that enough as a meeting planner knows, but there's nothing that beats that, years in hotels and figuring out what questions to ask and things like that. You just can't beat the years of doing it.
Excellent. And so when it comes to events, and you've organized probably hundreds, if not thousand events over your career, what would you say are the top 3 or 4 elements that can lead to executing a successful event?
Sure. And I'm probably going to go 4 because I could go probably 10, but I'm going to keep it at 4. I would say what has helped me be successful is, number 1, partnering with the best in the field. Find the gifting partner that you love the most, that shows up for you and jumps whenever changes happen, because they do happen. I have a production AV partner that I try to bring in for every event because they make my client shine. And that's what you want. Number 2 is never stop asking questions. Even when you think you have asked every question, ask, what am I not asking? Because there are things you're not even going to know to ask, because every hotel, every venue is different. Every city is different. Over plan in the beginning so that on site you're only dealing with the emergencies. The most successful events I've ever planned were a pain in the rear on the planning side. But when we got on site, everything was perfect because we had over planned it in the beginning. And then my personal thing that I do, I don't have anybody else do this. I do this myself. A week before the event, I sit in front of an Excel spreadsheet and I plan the event out minute by minute for me, for the attendee, and I assign every single person a task. And sometimes I might be assigning myself a task, but every staff member has a job. And even if it's tiny, even if it's making sure every table has hand sanitizer, make sure everything has a task so that you know where the holes are, because that's where you catch the things that could fall through when you get on site.
Wonderful. And we do have a question out there, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you, Candace. I think this would be a great opportunity to answer a question. Melanie asks, we have a photo booth with a celebrity and a reception next week with only about 50 people. But how do you handle taking pictures in this current environment? And I'm assuming she means with COVID. Any suggestions
Sure.
about photographers and how to make that safe?
Well, I think wear the mask all the way until you're taking the photo and follow CDC guidelines. I'm pretty sure there's something in there about anything under 15 minutes, you're okay. Again, it's the number of particles that you're exposed to over a certain amount of time. So as long as you're following CDC guidelines, as far as, keeping that a short, photo turn, then you should be good.
Okay, great. And that's going to bring us to our next poll, which is about pain points. So let's go ahead and launch this poll. And when planning an event, what are your biggest pain points? And we put a few in there. I'm sure there's several, Candace, but is it maybe the hotel contract process, food and beverage, which can be very challenging, especially nowadays, audio visual, the budgeting process, maybe getting sign off from executive leadership, or maybe it's your offsite activities if you're going out for a special meal or other occasion. Do you have one that's typically your biggest pain point, Candace? Or
I would say audio visual. We'll go back to that. That's the thing that I can't fix. If AV breaks on site, I have to find someone that knows what they're doing. I can turn on and off, and that's about where my knowledge stops. So having that trusted AV partner has helped me out of so many sticky situations.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like so far that's the most common pain point here by people. Let's go ahead and end the poll here and share the results. In fact, 43% of you say that audiovisual is in fact the biggest pain point. So that just goes along with you. So with that question, is there anything, can you dive a little deeper into specifically how you deal with somebody with AV, or
how you deal with somebody with AV? Well, there's a couple of things. No one knows AV language. They send you a proposal. You have no idea the words that are on that page. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. So even I have trouble deciphering that. So one of my best friends owns an AV company that helps me out a ton. I send her over the stuff and I say, look through this. What do I need? What do I don't need? And then the other part, again, I partner with someone out of Chicago that he negotiates all my AV contracts, and he knows exactly how I like my shows to be run. So he knows he always has to have walk-up music. He knows about how I like my mics run. So you just, again, have to get a partner that you love. And if you need recommendations, I've got a couple that they're my go-to people. And again, they fix the things that I can't fix when I get on site, and the show cannot go without it. So that's a number one thing for me. And I actually just thought of something for the question. See if the photography question, see if you can line up the camera and the people like they do on the news shows these days, where it looks like they're closer than they are together. So there's some sort of angle that they get where it looks like the anchor's a lot closer to the person than they actually are.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that a lot. So you've talked a lot about executing events and attention to detail that's necessary. So what are just a few key questions that event planners can ask to make sure that the event goes off seamlessly?
Sure. I'll go back to the last question you asked. Always say, what am I not thinking of? Again, there are things that are going to be different in every city and every hotel and every DMC that you work with. So once you're done asking the questions, then say, what are the questions that I'm not asking? Because then at the end of the day, and they surprise you with something, you can say, I've definitely asked you what I should be asking. And then in your head, go through what could go wrong and what's my plan to fix it? What's the backup plan? On-site registrations, make sure you have an on-site printer. And that's just some basic things. But again, when you do that minute by minute run of show, that helps you work through, okay, what could go wrong? Where are the holes? And what are my backup plans? A rain backup plan, very important. Not just to have backup space, which the hotel gets you covered there, but what other things were you planning? Were you planning a band? Is it going to fit? So just do an entire plan B with every element. Lighting looks a lot different when you order for indoors versus outdoors. Make sure your AV is prepared to make that switch in the short amount of time before you make that rain call. Who do I call when something changes? You're going to need to have the cell phone numbers for your on-site person, from your commission services manager. Usually you have a meetings concierge from the bigger hotels. Have those programmed in your phone. Have your AV crew programmed in your phone. The changes are going to happen. Be prepared. Do it with a smile, but have those numbers in your phone programmed. Okay. Those are probably my top questions that I ask.
Well, that's wonderful. And we do have one more question that's very timely here, also from Adriana. And I hope I'm saying that name right, but traditionally you see a 20% drop-off rate. And with COVID, have you seen a larger no-show rate for live events? And are you doing anything differently to prepare for that possibility?
So I would say I've done very few events since COVID, but two things. The majority of my events that I do are internal, so they don't get a choice. They have to come. And then second, I would say if they are not internal events, you see 20% or less because people really are excited to get out. Until you get into that larger number and people start to get a little bit nervous, people are ready to go and play and do it on someone else's dime. They're ready to go meet people. They're ready to see people face to face a little bit. Some of us are nervous to put on pants, every single day. But once you get them excited and, show them the agenda and all the things they're going to learn, the people they're going to meet, there's no different in the drop-off rate, which we're so excited to see.
Yeah. And I can tell you just personally, I want to get out there and go to some events. I'm going to my first trade show, leaving on Halloween, in fact, to Las Vegas. So I'm looking forward to that. And it'll be wonderful.
That's so exciting.
Last question, and then we're going to bring Kate on. And let's talk about when you attend an event as an actual attendee. What are some things that make it the most memorable for you?
Oh, people hate to see me coming when they're doing an event because I'm going to pick it apart. But I think probably the most important piece is a smiling face at registration. Just like when you go into a nice store, you want someone to welcome you. You want to feel at home. You're in a new place. Where do I go? What do I do? And if you have a friendly face at registration that's there to guide them, feed them little pieces of information as they go. Don't give them everything when they walk in the door because they're already discombobulated. But be that friendly face where they know they have someplace to go when they have questions, because they're going to have questions throughout their stay. And then my personal favorite are welcome drinks and welcome gifts. that is gifts mean more than money. We talked about this a little bit in one of our last meetings. We pulled away some cars that we used to give away. We used to give us six cars at our biggest event. We pulled that away and we thought, let's just divide that money up and give everybody gifts or gift cards or cash. And when somebody stood up and said, gifts mean more to people than if you gave them the equivalent in dollars. It